I was working at TGI Fridays, as a matter of fact, and I would always get people at the bar what are they doing? They're watching sports. They're watching sports. So, while people knew that I was studying politics, they also knew that Terrika's the girl that girl know everything about sports. She's going to talk to you about whatever football game you watching, whatever. It was just something that was just a passion. It was a hobby of mine because it was just, I didn't even think of it as a job. It was just, I'm serving these drinks. The football game is on. We might as well talk about it while I'm serving you these endless wings. And then it became a situation where my Sunday bar was completely packed, where no one else could pack a bar on a Sunday, but I'm packing a bar on a Sunday because people want to come sit at the bar with me, drink a brew, eat some wings, and watch, the Panthers play, Carolina Panthers play, or whoever. And it was at that moment where one of my coworkers said, Terrika, you are awesome at this, but this is not what you should be doing. You need to be doing something in sports. I don't care where it is, who it is, what it is. This is your calling. What you're doing right now, I mean, you're good, but that's not what you need to be doing. And I never really took it seriously until this person said it. And she was someone who I admired, someone who I really looked up to, someone who had always been very honest with me. So at that point is when I was like, maybe I should be considering a career in sports.
Today's podcast is presented by PodGo. PodGo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you always know how much you get when you include an ad from PodGo. Apply today to become a member, and immediately you'll be contacted with advertisers that fit your audience. That's podgo.co at podgo.co. And be sure to include our podcast, Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings, in the How Did You Hear About PodGo section of the application. Y'all want to hear something funny? I worked at ESPN for 2 years, and during my time there, I was able to connect with so many great people. However, after my departure, I've been able to connect with a lot more great people that was there at the time I was there, but our paths just never crossed. Today is somebody who is an example of that. The one and only Miss Terrika Foster-Brasby. Terrika wears so many hats in this journalism world. She is a podcast producer, she's also a writer, and she even hosts her own segment called T Takes Two. So we talked about a lot of that, including a podcast that I was a huge fan of, The Plug. So, ladies and gentlemen, get ready for this conversation. I promise you will enjoy it as I was able to enjoy it. And ironically, this was like the first time we've talked in person, quote unquote, I should say via Zoom, as we've been connected on Facebook and Twitter for so long. And it was an honor to finally get a conversation with the one and only Miss Terrika Foster-Brasby. All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the line today, I actually have a special guest, somebody who I feel like I've known for 3 or 4 years as I've been, following her on social media and listened to her on various different shows, watched a lot of content she's produced for other people as well as herself. And that is the one and only Miss Terrika Foster-Brasby. How you feeling today? I think I messed up.
I am good. You were so close. Oh, it was so good. It was so good. But it's Brasby. But Brasby. It was close. It was close. I'm gonna let it slide because you got the first name right, and that's most important.
well, shout out to our good friend Justin Tinsley, because most of the time y'all was always going back and forth on the podcast. So, which we'll get into later. But first and foremost, how you feeling today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking me and inviting me to come on the show. I'm honored.
I appreciate it. You have a wealth of knowledge, experience, and, somebody that I've been, looked up to, and, I've always appreciated your work. So I'm excited to have this conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When did you decide to get into the media business?
That is a very good question. I don't know if I have a concrete answer for that. I think a part of me has kind of always wanted to be, I've always wanted to be in sports, right? So I knew that. I wasn't exactly sure on what capacity, because I had done like so many different things. So, when I was younger, I had people tell me, you should be a reporter. You should be a reporter. And I was like, I don't want to be a reporter. I mean, like maybe, I don't know. So that was kind of like the first thoughts of it. And then I remember as a kid seeing Robin Roberts host SportsCenter. And that was when I was like, yo, who is this amazing Black woman hosting a sports show? Like, that needs to be me. So I think probably around that age is when I figured that I could possibly see myself in a career in sports media. But I mean, like most children, I wanted to dibble dabble in everything. I wanted to get in politics. I thought I was going to be a Broadway actress. So I mean, there were so many things going through my head at the same time. I don't think it ever dawned on me that eventually being in sports would give you an opportunity to do all of those things, because right now we are definitely combining sports and politics, and there is definitely a little bit of acting involved. So there you go.
Wow, you know what? I don't think I've thought about the acting on that side, but now that you say something,
Right?
yeah, you hit that right on the head. So growing up, who was like some of your teams? When did you first become a sports fan? Do you remember like your first big sports moment as a fan?
Absolutely, absolutely. So my mom has this picture of me at the 1984 World Series. I was literally like 2 months old, if that. First of all, I'm questioning your parenting skills, because why you got your baby out at Tiger Stadium at a World Series? You're 2 months old. You need to be in the house.
Well, she knew how far
But
those were in between. So,
right. And I've got like this like orange cheeks, and she's put like little blue tiger stripes on my. It was really embarrassing. I hope that picture never surfaces the internet, because I'm never gonna live it down. But the moment that I actually remember, my first sports moment that really like brought me in is the 1988 NBA championship, where the Detroit Pistons were playing the LA Lakers. And in this particular game, Isaiah Thomas ended up breaking his ankle. And so he basically played the fourth quarter just bawling out on one ankle. And like, to me, that was the moment where I genuinely felt like, this is something that really means the world to me. And it's kind of hard to define coming from Detroit, which is a city that at that point in time was doing, like, basketball was everything. So as much as I like to say that basketball was the sport that I really took to first, while it was my first sports memory, I think the sport that I really took to first was football, just because it gave me an opportunity to spend a lot of time with my dad. Most little girls want to be with their dads. So that's kind of where it was. It's just always been something in me. My grandparents were huge baseball fans. Every Sunday after church, we'd come home, 1:00 start time. We're watching the Tigers play baseball. So it's just literally like all of my life sports have always been there.
Okay, now sidebar real quick. How did you become a Colts fan?
Oh, okay. I knew
An
this was coming.
opportunity to root for Barry Sanders.
I knew this was coming. But see, you got to understand, right? The Lions are a very special kind of team, right?
Okay.
Because you don't want to ever root against them if you're from Detroit. But it's hard, right? It's really hard to be a Lions fan. However, in my case, my not my parents, because my mom and my grandparents, they didn't really watch football like that. But my dad and my uncle were the two who I really like learned the game of football from. And my uncle was a huge Jerry Rice fan. So he was a 49ers guy. My dad was a huge Johnny Unitas fan. So he was a Baltimore Colts guy. And it just so happened the year I was born is the year that they moved from Baltimore to Indy. So I became...
a move.
I'm gonna call it moving. Don't you bring this DMV. We're not gonna do this.
Whoa. We're not in the DMV. We're in Baltimore.
Oh, excuse me. Let me rephrase. Don't bring that Baltimore hate.
In all actuality, though, it's hard to, from my age, hard to root against the Colts because we do have the Ravens. So by the time I got into football, it was, they were long gone, and
right.
And then obviously Tony Dungy, I that was probably my second favorite Super Bowl outside of the Ravens winning 2000, because when I tell you, when it was 21-3, I went in the basement and prayed. I was like, Lord, please, everything. Tony,
please don't let.
Yeah, and Peyton Manning is one of my favorite quarterbacks. So, it's definitely no hate here. And, shout out to John Harbaugh, because he stopped letting them write Indy in Baltimore and actually let them write out Colts, because before it was always like Ravens, Indy, but they would have the other teams' nicknames. And he said, no, this is a new era. So
now that's interesting. I never knew that.
Yeah,
the hate was strong, yo.
From a lot of fans. But you remember the Ray Lewis's last dance farewell. It was the Colts was the first team. So that's when it started right there, because every other time, and if I'm not mistaken, that may have been, because that was Harbaugh's first time hosting the Colts. So that was when he said, look, this is a new era. Let bygones be bygones. Now, Cleveland can't seem to let the Ravens bygones be bygones. They got their team back, and they got to keep the nickname. So not that we wanted the Browns.
Right. I mean, I don't blame you for that. However, I totally understand the sentiment, and then being in the same division didn't really make it any better. But yeah, that's pretty much like when people ask me, is it because the Lions are bad, or was it because, and honestly, no, it had absolutely nothing honestly to do with the team itself. It's just that I learned the game from people who were not Lions fans. So therefore I didn't become a Lions fan, but I can never cheer against the Lions unless they're playing the Colts. Other than that, I want to see them do well. I hope they win a Super Bowl someday very soon. I want to see them be prosperous. I hope this new regime works out for them. I really do. I don't really wear Lions gear like that. If I'm representing Detroit, somebody gives it to me, it's free, whatever. I'm not about to go buy it, but you know what I mean? But that's the only team from Detroit that I don't really represent. But in terms of everything else, all the way Tigers, all the way Pistons, all the way Red Wings, Michigan State Spartans. That's me.
What was it like growing up during the Bad Boys era? Because I've seen the documentaries, and as a Lakers fan, you sitting there watching it, and the way it's produced in a way to make you want to root for them. And I'm like, wow, if I was actually watching, would I like that team? But now looking at it, it's like you root for it, because I'm looking at it like this. How can you not like Isaiah?
Facts, right? Like, how can you not like Isaiah? How can you not want to root for Joe Dumars? How can you not want to root for Rick Mahorn? I can understand if you felt like you didn't want to root for Bill Laimbeer. Cool, whatever. But realistically, though, it was a great time for me. I mean, I was young at that time. I was really coming into my own. But what I felt like was really, and to this day, I still have an issue with accepting Michael Jordan. Like, I accept Michael Jordan, of course. Like, I recognize him as the GOAT in basketball. But it took a lot to get there, because the hate was and is real. As you can see, he still got some Detroit hate too. He ain't let it go for real. Right. But realistically, though, I think that the biggest thing that you could take away from that is that team really represented the city. I mean, when you think about people talking about the city of Detroit, they think about it being a gritty type city. They think about it being a hardworking, type city. The people there are always feeling like the tables are against us, like the world is against us. Hence, Detroit versus everybody. Because that's literally how it feels. There's hardly ever any media that you will find that is painting Detroit in a good light. And it's not just one person, it's the whole city. Like, we have to come together as a city to make noise and make waves. And that's how that team was. That team was hardworking. It was gritty. It wasn't while Dumars and Isaiah and, of course, even Rodman. I mean, yes, we had stars, but realistically, it was a team effort. Even when you look at the 2004 Pistons team, it was a team effort. You know what I mean? Like, there were individual people who were great in their own right, but it was the collective that made that team a powerhouse. And so that's kind of like how we have embraced it. And we kind of embraced that with all the teams in Detroit. None of them are teams that you know, point out a superstar. It's always like collectively together, they make it do what it do. And that's just kind of how, you know, we really feel like our city is, how we represent, you know, what it is to be a Detroiter. So I loved it. Love the Bad Boys era. Loved it.
It's definitely something we can relate to because excuse me, Baltimore is that way, kind of like this forgotten city in between DC and Philly.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, first thing when, you know, I was working at ESPN, people say, "Oh, is it like The Wire?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, how many times you gonna hear that and not get irritated with it? But always in a negative light. We are obviously know the Ravens they had their fair share of players with issues earlier in their infancy. So like now, even with Lamar Jackson, there's always somebody hating on him, and then people will say, "Man, y'all Ravens fans love Lamar Jackson." I'm like, well, look, this is the first time where we had a unanimous MVP and a black quarterback. Of course, we're gonna go defend him because everybody always got something to say about him.
Right. No, I totally understand that. I mean, I feel what you mean about The Wire, because I either get people referring to 8 Mile when they're talking about the D, or they want to sing the little stupid YouTube song, "It's So Cold in the D." I hate that song so much. Like, do not sing that song to me. So I totally get it.
Yeah. I want to take a quick minute to talk about mental health. As you all know, we are living in unprecedented times, whether it's the racial pandemic or the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, I want to introduce you to Hope Again Counseling Services, where transformation begins. Hope Again provides help for children, adolescents, adults, family, and couples. So give them a call at 410-698-8442 or visit them on the web at yourhopeagain.com to book your appointment. If you are willing to believe, you will begin to achieve, and ultimately, Hope Again Counseling Services can help you receive all that is meant for you. So how did you decide on your college, St. Augustine's University?
Yes. So the difference in our school and the school in Florida is we are St. Augustine. So we were named after the Episcopalian saint from who was Black. Awesome. Yes. And I'm going to tell you a funny story how I ended up at St. Aug. Very funny story. So when I first went to college, I actually went to Florida Memorial University in Miami, Florida, which is also an HBCU. And I loved it there. It was amazing. I had a great time. I love living in Miami. I mean, what 18-year-old girl wouldn't love living in Miami? And I was a student athlete as well. I played volleyball there. So it was a lot of fun. I loved it. But then my grandfather got sick in the spring of 2004. He was already sick when I left, but his health took a decline. And I decided not to return back to Florida against my mother's wishes. So he passed away actually that fall. And I stayed in Detroit to attend Wayne State University. And while I was there, I hated it. I did enjoy Wayne State. I enjoyed the people that I met, the friends that I made, but I hated being back home. After you've lived in Miami, how do you go back to Detroit, right? So I hated living at home. I hated being at a predominantly white college after I had just spent 2 years at an HBCU. Like, I was completely embraced in the HBCU culture. So it was just like, So I told myself I was going to get my tape for my years playing at St. Aug. At Florida Memorial, and that I was going to put a bunch of HBCUs in a Ziploc bag. And whatever HBCU I put, whatever state that I pull out, because there were, what I actually did was I put the states that had Black colleges in a Ziploc bag, and I shook it up. And whatever state I pulled out, that's where I was going to look to go to school. And I pulled out North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, well, North Carolina it is. Let's see what's going on down there. There was Shaw University, there was Fayetteville State, there was St. Aug, there's North Carolina A&T, Elizabeth City. Like there are tons of HBCUs in the state of North Carolina. So I had no interest in going to Fayetteville, because now I'm being nitpicky. Right now I'm like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to stay in this particular city. So it was between North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T, and St. Aug. And I sent my tape to all three. Yes, at this time, we were still looking at tapes and DVDs. So I sent my tape, I sent my application, I sent my grades, and I was accepted into all three. But St. Aug was super personal to me. They called me, they wrote me, the coach reached out to me, like they were super personal. And I was like, okay, this is the school that I am supposed to be at. And that's where I went. So January 2006, I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. I graduated from St. Aug in May of 2010, and I stayed in North Carolina for an additional 2.5 years after that. I didn't move away until 2013.
Okay, now you studied political science and government.
I did.
While you was there, did you get that itch for the media, or were you just or were you doing both, I should say?
I think it's a little bit of both because I just knew at this point, remember earlier in the conversation, I was like, I was young. I didn't know what I want to do. By this time, I had already did a true freshman and a true sophomore year. I had already done like a true junior year. Anyone who's ever transferred schools know that oftentimes credits don't always transfer. So for anyone out there in college listening, be sure and consistent, and do not be indifferent on what college you want to go to, because not everyone's going to take your credits. So when I transferred to St. Aug, I had actually entered as a second semester freshman after having already spent 3.5 years in college. None of my credits transferred. I had to do everything over again outside of basic, algebra and English and stuff like that. All of my other classes didn't transfer. So I had to do them all over. But I was also like an adult. I'm 21 now. I'm not staying on campus for real. I have an on-campus apartment, but I'm grown. So I got bills, I got a job. I have stuff that I have to do. So I'm clear at this point, or at least I thought, on what it was that I wanted to do. And at that point, I knew I wanted to study law. I wanted to be an attorney, eventually get into government, state and local government, possibly become a senator, first Black senator, state of Michigan. Like I was head over heels, I was in it. But while I was working to pay my bills, I worked as a bartender. I was working at TGI Fridays, as a matter of fact. And I would always get people at the bar who, what are they doing? They're watching sports. They're watching sports. So, while people knew that I was studying politics, they also knew that Terrika's the girl that girl know everything about sports. She's going to talk to you about whatever football game you watching, whatever. It was just something that was just a passion. It was a hobby of mine because it was just, I didn't even think of it as a job. It was just, I'm serving these drinks. The football game is on. We might as well talk about it while I'm serving you these endless wings. And then it became a situation where my Sunday bar was completely packed, where no one else could pack a bar on a Sunday, but I'm packing a bar on a Sunday because people want to come sit at the bar with me, drink a brew, eat some wings, and watch, the Panthers play, Carolina Panthers play, or whoever. And it was at that moment where one of my coworkers said, Terrika, you are awesome at this, but this is not what you should be doing. You need to be doing something in sports. I don't care where it is, who it is, what it is. This is your calling. What you're doing right now, I mean, you're good, but that's not what you need to be doing. And I never really took it seriously until this person said it. And she was someone who I admired, someone who I really looked up to, someone who had always been very honest with me. So at that point is when I was like, maybe I should be considering a career in sports.
Wow, that's amazing. It's crazy. Well, not crazy, but a lot of times people see stuff in us before we see it in ourselves. And to have somebody that you look up to pretty much tell you like, go after it. That's amazing right there. So what was your first opportunity, and what was the kind of like your entry, excuse me, your
That's good.
foot in the door?
Yeah. So the first opportunity that I had seriously was one of my sweetheart sisters. I'm a member of Iota Sweethearts Incorporated. And one of my sweetheart sisters started an online magazine called La Dolce La Cora. And so it was like fashion, beauty, makeup, all this other good stuff, world news, whatever, whatever. And this is like 2013. So this is literally right once I had moved back from North Carolina to Detroit. And she said, Terrika, I would really love if you could contribute the sports section to my online magazine. And I was like, okay, I can, do what I can. I'll write. I was unfamiliar with like formal sports writing. I was unfamiliar. It was just like, you know what? I'm just going to write what I think, and hopefully that works. Little did I know blogging was about to blow up. So me writing what I think was exactly what people wanted to read, and it was exactly what people wanted to know. And it just so happened to be during football season. So there was a market for it. People wanted it. They enjoyed reading it. She started calling me the Gridiron Girl. So I kind of took that name on a little bit. And after about 3 months of doing that, I received a Facebook inbox message from a guy named Will Johnson, who asked me if I would be interested in hosting an online radio show for the Sports Fam Radio Network. And I was like, I don't think you got the right person. I ain't never hosted nobody's radio show. I don't know. I don't even have a voice for radio. Don't nobody want to hear me. And he's like, no, I've been reading your stuff. I think you're really good. I would love for you to contribute to what we're doing. And so I talked to my then fiance. I was like, you think I should do it? He's like, duh, like, what do you have to lose? And come that February of 2013, 2013, I'm right. February of 2013 is when I hosted the first episode of the Gridiron Girl on the Sports Fam Radio Network. And I think and my first guest was actually Gary Parrish, who is a Fox Sport, or at the time, not Fox, CBS, at the time was a CBS sports anchor. So it's like, dude, not only am I doing something, I have no idea what I'm doing, but you didn't brought this dude for me to interview first. I'm about to completely ruin this. Like, I'm going to be fired before I start good. But in the oppositely, it really worked out. They loved it. People started to tune in, started to get a fan base, started to get more comfortable with it. And I think that's like when I really knew I loved doing this and I wanted to take it a step further.
Wow, that's amazing. And it's amazing to see how you was being prepared for that while you was at the bar.
They was throwing me in the fire, yo. Just throwing me in the fire.
You talking to people about sports, and then boom, you're on the radio, and essentially it's the same thing. You commanding attention from people, where you're trying to get people to buy ad space before you're trying to get people to spend money and talk sports with you.
And this time they're not drunk. That's the hardest part. Like now, you're sober. So I have to really make sure I bring my points, because at the bar you have drunk. You don't know what I'm talking about, but But no, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And like literally the connections that were made through the Sports Fam Radio Network, just literally that is what really put my mind like, Terrika, you can really do this if you really wanted to. Like that was what made me push myself to go to grad school to get my master's degree in journalism. I started to send stuff to different outlets that I thought would be interested. So I ended up sending some stuff over to Yahoo, and then they allowed me to write for the Yahoo Contributor Network. So I was doing that for a while. It was really dope. And then lo and behold, I saw that ESPN was hiring for a digital editor. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for ESPN, but what do I got to lose? I'm going to just fill this application out and see what happens. Apparently it worked.
How nervous were you? You came December 2014?
Yep.
And wow, that's amazing, because I left in September 2015.
What?
Yeah, yep. September. Well, technically it was August. It was August, excuse me. But it was the end of August. It would have been, if I stayed 2 more weeks, it would have been like 2 years to the day. But how was your interview process?
I was completely nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Totally nervous. Like I never ever think that I can go into an interview and not nail it. So maybe that's, arrogance or an extreme amount of confidence, but I honestly feel like every interview that I go into, I have the ability to nail it. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to kill this. But I was nervous because I didn't know really what I was doing. I had just started grad school in June. The most that and that was the first time that I was ever really learning like any formal training in how to be a journalist. I had been doing it, as we, discussed, I had been doing it in some ways for years, but I had never had any formal training. So to be in the middle of a grad school program, an accelerated grad school program at that, and then also trying to work at the sports mogul of the world was really nerve-wracking. I was like, I don't know if they're going to think that I'm qualified. I don't know if they're going to count my online radio show as real radio experience, because you know how it is where there are people who want to kind of put tiers or levels on what counts or qualifies as experience and what doesn't. So there was that. I just didn't know what to expect, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna just give it all that I got. And I was very happy to see a Black woman in my interview process as well. Sharita Johnson, shout out Sharita Johnson. Absolutely love her. She was so instrumental in pulling for me and advocating for me at that time. So I think with her on my side, having some support from family and friends, I just kind of went in an interview like I feel like I got it. And then also the recruiter at ESPN at the time, he was really dope to me too. He was like, I really love your resume. I really love, your energy. And I really feel like you can be successful here. So I just think I had a lot of people pulling for me and working for me to get me in the door, and they did.
Yeah, that's amazing. And one thing I've learned about, excuse me, one thing I learned was, for me, it was the wrestling realm. I was fresh out of college, coming in as a production assistant, and I had went to NABJ and, did the whole, recruiter, going to the booth. But when I sat there in the, doing the car wash, and I showed them my resume, and he was like, wait, you have a wrestling show? I was like, yeah. And I remember calling Dwayne, because this is a platform we built together. And I said, hey man, like, the wrestling realm got me hired. He's like, what? I said, yes, like all the stuff that we did, from lighting the set in your mother's basement to shooting with our standard definition cameras, all of that got me hired at ESPN. And yeah, the Baltimore Sun as an internship was cool. But one thing I've learned, and I always try to tell people, whatever you're doing, put that down on your resume.
Yeah.
Because it's experience, regardless of what. And sure, everybody has a blog or a podcast. One thing, is showing that you can be consistent.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think that's a great point, that like everything that you're doing, put that on your resume, because I even now have on my resume the entire 4 years that I was doing my own thing as a multimedia journalist with She Knows Sports Web. Every article, every interview, every team I covered, everything that I was doing, yes, I was doing it for free. Yes, I was doing it for my own personal blog. Yes, I was doing it for my own personal development, but it did make me better. And I did develop relationships because of it. And no one can deny me that experience at this point, whether I was paid for it or not, whether I was doing it for ESPN or on my own personal thing. I got experience from it that has really helped me along the way. At this point in time, remember, yeah, people were podcasting, but it wasn't like where it is now. Like everybody and their mama didn't have a podcast at that point. It was kind of one of those things where, oh, okay. And we were using like Blog Talk Radio. So we would be able to download, you remember Blog Talk Radio, right? We would be able to download the show after the show had aired. I mean, what is that? It's a podcast, right? But like, we didn't know like that's what it was at the time. And didn't really understand like how we could have probably taken that audio and done some amazing things with it to, give it better quality or anything like that. But what it did grant me was the ability to produce a show, to run a switchboard, to take callers, to carry a show for a full 49 minutes, to understand ad breaks, to understand where you needed to put promotional efforts, to book guests, to interview guests. Like, this is all stuff that I learned from 2 years of doing an online radio show that I wasn't paid for, but it helped me get to where I am. And I would never, like, every single resume from now until I don't need a job no more, the Sports Fam Radio Network will be on that resume, because that groomed me to get to where I am.
There you go. I mean, you said it right there. Now, you came in as a podcast producer.
I did. I came in as, I think my official job title was digital audio editor. What does all that really mean? You're an assistant podcast producer.
What were some of the first assignments they had you on?
I did some cool stuff, honestly. When I first got there, the podcasting department at ESPN was really still shaping up. So there were some very good titles, but there were a lot. And there, some of the people that were there when I started in 2014 aren't there now, but I was assisting at first. I didn't have any of my own in the beginning. So I was assisting on fantasy focused football before it was Field Yates and Matthew Berry. At the time, I think it was like Nate Rabbits and Matthew Berry. I was assisting on this podcast called The Poker Edge. I was working with, what's the name of this podcast? Oh, it's going to kill me. Gosh, I can't even remember the name of it now. That's so bad. But I can't even remember the name of it. It was like some one-off random, like once a month type podcast. And then once I started to show that I could do it a little bit more on my own, I started working with Josh Macri, who was the lead producer on His and Hers with Jamel and Michael Smith. So I feel like I had made it, right? I was like, yo, I'm assistant producer with Jamel and Michael, and Jamel, my girl from the dig. Come on now. Like, so there was that. That was a lot of fun. I started working with, oh my God, this is going to kill. They're going to kill me if they ever hear this podcast. They're going to kill me. Marcus Spears and Maria Taylor, but the name of the podcast is escaping me. And it was an SEC podcast. But anyway, it was Maria Taylor and Marcus Spears. You remember it, right? Why can't I think of it? See, it's not just me. I'm like, I can't think of the name of it right now. Really, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, y'all. I can't remember the name.
I remember like Maria being like next up before, she would obviously blow up. You saw it. If you had an eye for talent, you saw it. And when I started there, I started in what they call sales quality control.
Mm-hmm.
I had to watch a lot of the college football games. We would come in on Sunday, watch the college football games, and mark out all the time codes whenever the ads ran. And basically was a tattletale. If the producers didn't run the ads, we had to send them an email. And I can remember she being on there and knowing like, yeah, she's up next.
It's really gonna bug me. Oh, look, I had to Google. It's Beyond the Lights. There it is. Yep. I was like, why can't I remember the name of this podcast? But it was Beyond the Lights. So that was another one that I ended up taking lead on as the producer. Then I started doing some other stuff with like ESPN the magazine, and like I just started working my way up. Like whenever I needed somebody to fill in, I was filling in on Baseball Tonight. Like I was just kind of working my way around. And while a part of me kind of felt like I really can't wait till I can have a podcast of my own that I can say I produced and that I took the lead on, I actually appreciated being able to kind of fill in where I could get in, because it gave me an opportunity to meet some of the people who are now, the biggest names and talent at ESPN. Like to this day, Marcus Spears and I are still very cool. Maria, still my girl. Working with Buster Oney, Adam Schefter, like these are big names that people are like, oh my God. But I'm like, yo, I got an opportunity to work with them day in, day out, until 2016, when I was like, okay, I need my own. And I know exactly what area and what niche I need to be in that's going to help make it my own, because I love this sport and no one here is doing anything since Debbie Antonelli and Beth Mowins had to shoot around, and that's women's basketball. So I went to kick it with a few people and tell them my idea, not knowing the exact same time. Women's basketball analyst LaChina Robinson was doing the exact same thing to her contacts and her connects. And someone who knew both of us came together and was like, you're pitching this, and it's the same thing. Y'all need to work together and make this happen. And that's when Around the Rim was born.
Wow. So what were some of the challenges, if you can share, that y'all had? Because it's no secret that they, in general, not just ESPN, but networks don't push women's sports the way they should. I've always said, and this was, you don't have to comment if you don't want to.
I got it.
But I always said that what always irritated me about ESPN was all you saw was UConn. Yet there were thousands of other girls across the country busting their tails trying to put on great basketball, trying to have great basketball games. But all you see is UConn because it's in the same state. And I always felt that you have all this marketing power. If you market a big game, no matter who's playing, people are going to watch it. So did y'all have any, like, a lot of pushback on trying to get a women's basketball podcast?
Well, there were definitely a set of challenges in the beginning, that's for sure. We had challenges with in the beginning, the podcast was LaChina and Shanae as host and co-host. But Shanae, being the amazing Shanae that she is, she had a lot going for her. She was, just integrating back from an injury. So she was just getting back into the season. They started having her do more stuff for NBA, working with the Celtics. She was doing a lot of stuff. So her growth allowed, an opportunity for us to start to get in and weave in different voices on the podcast. But we had issues with, co-hosts at first. We had issues with sound quality. LaChina was in Atlanta. She is in Atlanta. So there wasn't like a studio for her to go into at the time in order to record the podcast. So we had to get her like an iPad, and she would go in her closet and close the door so she can have like that, that great soundproof sound. Like, we had our fair share of challenges. But we also stayed consistent. We also kept our podcast on people's eyes and kept our podcast in people's ears. And because LaChina is so amazing and has such a great rapport with so many people in women's basketball, we never had an issue getting guests. We never had an issue bringing on some of the biggest names in women's basketball, be it college or pros. And because of that, it was one of those situations where you can't help but love us and respect us for what we're doing, because we're not, despite the sound quality, despite the fact that, we may not get the same kind of promotion that other podcasts get, we are still putting our best foot forward, and our fans love it, and they're reacting to it, and they respond to it. But I will say, and this is no shot to ESPN or anyone else, but it's just that I get it, right? It's a business. This media is a business, and they're going to put their dollars and they're going to put things behind what's going to in turn bring them more money. And we keep asking, and we keep, and this is across women's basketball. We are just simply saying, give these women the opportunity to expose their game and what they bring to everyone, and you will see the money come. But in the beginning, there were not a lot of women's basketball fans looking for that were, regular viewers of ESPN. So, what could we really do at that particular moment, other than, again, just keep being consistent, keep putting our stuff out there, and eventually the tables turned. We were able to, we started working with different teams, hosting different live podcasts, being at the Final Four. So I think there's a huge difference now in 2021 than there was in 2016. But like with most shows, not even just with, women's basketball, with anything that's new, that people want to see it first. They want to see how it does first. And then, you start to get those resources behind it.
Yeah. Now I gotta ask you about my favorite podcast.
Yes,
that went away.
That came 2 years later. Yep.
When did y'all come up with the idea? I just remember. I remember it being I think I saw it on social media or something, and I was like, "Oh, I'm tuning in." And I like to think I've listened to 90% of the episodes. I'm gonna go ahead and admit this. I downloaded an episode so I could rip the theme music off, and it's still my ringtone on my phone because I couldn't find it. Shout out to Wade. I couldn't find it anywhere on the internet.
I'm not even mad because occasionally, like, I haven't done it recently because we've been working from home. Mm-hmm. But when we were still going into the office, I would absolutely go into a studio and just blast the theme song just on a random Tuesday. Like, you know what? I need to pick me up. Let me just blast this boy in here. Mm-hmm. Just so, long story short, I randomly got, I want to say it was maybe the cafeteria, or maybe we were outside on a patio. I can't remember, but I think it was the cafeteria. But nonetheless, Chanae and Kayla Johnson came up to me and were basically like, okay, we got this dope idea for a podcast. And I can say it now because like it's years later, mm-hmm. But they were like, we got this dope idea for a podcast, but we haven't really been like approved to record it yet. And we know you work in audio, so maybe we can just like slide into a studio and like record it and just see what happens. And I was like, I'm here for it. Let's do it. Right. So we went in, and it wasn't called The Plug. It was called something else at that time. I can't even remember the name of it, but it was called something else. And they came in, they recorded the pilot. And I loved it. I was like, y'all, this is dope. And if this takes off, I would love to serve as the producer, for this as well. And they were like, oh, okay, well, we also have another guy who produces as well. His name is Tess. And I was like, okay, well, shoot, me and Tess, I got Tess. I will help Tess on the audio side. And, you know, once everything gets together, I can just check in from time to time. So I wasn't supposed to be like the permanent producer. It was supposed to be Tess. And then there was Justin, who came in to bring the culture from the Undefeated. And that's like who it was. I was just like the outside person that was just kind of helping out. But after the first couple of, so, you know, I've been giving them gif about this photo shoot for like 3 years. Right. Yeah. I was like, y'all had a photo shoot and everything. I was never a part of this. I just snuck myself on in there, and me being me, it's like, hey guys, you know, I'm still available if you need that producer. Mm-hmm. And the very first episode was Fabulous and From the Locks, not Styles, the other one.
Chic. Jadakiss.
Jadakiss. It was because they were dropping Freddie versus Jason, like their CD was dropping. Yeah. Right. So that was the very first episode. And once they came in the studio, I was like, oh, I am never not going to be producer of this show. Y'all got Jada and Fab coming up in here. I'm never not producing this show. And that's just really how it started. Like, it was a fun show that was meant to really put on for the culture, that was meant to target the audience of the younger Black minority crowd. While we touched on sports, it was more than a sports show. We kind of got into a little bit of everything, broke a little news when Chris Tucker came on the show talking about they were going to start moving forward with working on a Rush Hour 4. It was just a lot, you know. We were able to do some breaking stories at NBA All-Star and do some live shows for the NBA draft.
You ain't gonna just talk about NBA All-Star without talking about that time when I forgot her name, messed up the theme music, because that was in my head the way y'all kept playing it on the show. But
when Fergie,
yep,
That was definitely the year Fergie did a very interesting job at singing the national anthem, and we had a blast to make fun of that. So it was such a fun time. The Plug was definitely a show that we loved, and unfortunately it had to be sunset for whatever reason. But what it did though is it definitely brought a bond between all of us. So it's so wonderful to see Justin doing his thing. And like now he's my here for it partner. And Shanae is just talking about breaking the glass ceiling. Shanae is out here breaking everything you put in front of her. I absolutely love it. Kayla is just amazing. She's continuing to put some of the best video content that I've ever seen out. Somebody needs to let her direct a movie because she's just totally amazing. Tess the same. He's doing what he's doing in the DMV for the Undefeated. So everyone has really taken the skill set and applied it, and they're living their best lives. But I'm happy to say we're all still friends, and we still have our group chat. We still be cutting up.
Is there a chance for a reunion?
I've been asking that question since 2019, bro.
Maybe even if it's just a quarterly episode, me, Ashley, Kelsey, Renee, and Brandon, we do ours. We keep it just for the big topics, just so that we won't burn each other out. But I remember the last episode, and y'all said we got an announcement to make, and so it was always something I listened to going to work. And at that time, my daughter school, she was going to like the Y for daycare school, pre-K or whatever, like Head Start. And that was about a 30-minute drive there, and then another 30-minute drive from there to work. So that was my go-to. And then if not,
that was your listen.
Yeah. So I remember that episode. I was like, no. Okay, I'm gonna finish. That I hope they're not, because and then it was, I'm not sure if it was afterwards or shortly before. I remember when Michael and Jamel did the same thing with his and hers. Said, we'll be back, we'll see. And I'm like, all these breakups.
All these breakups.
It's not y'all, it's us. We go see
it's not y'all. Yes.
It was definitely a show I really enjoyed, especially because I not one who stay up to date with today's music or whatever. I'll listen and catch a music video or catch what's trending, and really a lot of times it's whatever that like y'all were playing and y'all were talking about, giving the update. So that's what kind of helped me stay in. And shout out to y'all, because I won a pair of shoes. I won the Adidas that time.
Yep.
And I was like, oh my goodness, I won.
Yep.
Y'all definitely appreciated that. And if I remember, so is this the idea? Do you know if this is the idea that led them to putting Golick Jr. and Shanae together? Because I remember him being on there. And
he was on the show often.
Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly can't say if that's what led to it. But I know that, he and Shanae have great chemistry, and I'm pretty sure the people who were putting the show together saw that. And he's also somebody who definitely stays in touch with what's going on, his culture and others. Right. So it was always fun having Golick Jr. on the show. So I don't know if this is what did it. I'm pretty sure it was this as well as other things that was going on and that they were doing together. But it certainly worked. We also had Elle Duncan on the show when she first was coming to ESPN. We had Cornell on the show hosting a little bit. Cornell was the voice. Everyone heard his voice. Yeah, right.
Car wash. Like when we did the car wash, he was the PA that they put with us so that we could get to know. And then
Cornell Jones, that's that guy, right? Now he's down in Charlotte doing I think he's the announcer for the Charlotte Hornets or something.
That's what he's doing. Okay, I wasn't sure. We lived in the same apartment building. And he would invite me to go running. And at that time I had shin splints. So I was like, I ain't running nowhere. He said, come on, man, all you gotta do is run the glass, Brian. That's what you gotta do. And
that's what you do.
Saw him in I think it was either New Orleans or Miami for NABJ. He said, so you ready to come back? I said, I ain't going back.
Yep, that was Cornell. So I mean, all in all, it was just really dope. And I missed the plug a lot. Like you're right. It was such a show that just it was so different than anything else that we were doing.
It was ahead of its time too. When you really look back and see what's going on now, you look at these other podcasts and these other shows, It was so far ahead of its time, and I don't think a lot of people will understand that. But it was, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it and somewhat relive it, because I just want to say, like, I appreciate everything that y'all did, not just because I want the shoes, but I really appreciate it. That's the reason why I was always live tweeting. I was like, oh man,
I loved it. We loved that. Like, we absolutely did. We loved it. We loved the support, and I think a show like that, had it been able to kind of stay around what everything that was going on last year, it definitely would have been helpful, because I think that kind of show would have been able to kind of put some things in perspective for some people, at our company, not at our company, kind of everywhere. And I think it would have been a great outlet. And I'm not exactly sure that we offered, outside of, at the time, we had the Stugatz's podcast Stupidity, where at ESPN at the time, where he allowed myself and 3 other African-American colleagues in radio to come on and kind of talk about, like, what the climate was like and what it was really like to be, not only just at ESPN, but just to be Black in like what we're going through right now. Right. So super appreciative of him offering his platform for us to do that. But I think a show like The Plug definitely would have been a great way to kind of express a lot of the things that people were feeling, just to kind of give a good perspective on it from a different angle.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, shout out to y'all, because I mean, it was definitely what we needed, and I'm just it's amazing to see how the tree has grown. Like you said, to see where everybody's doing now. Now
Right.
you've been able to also, while you're doing your thing at ESPN, you're also still writing and still blogging. How have you been able to do that balance? Because I think it's phenomenal. And for everything that you're doing, as well as, having your own platform.
That's a very good question. I don't know what type of magical drugs I take, but whatever it is, it's amazing, right? I'm kidding, people. I don't take drugs. But but no, honestly, it's been very interesting, and a lot of fun. Like, I realized that, while I love working for ESPN and I love what I do, there are some things that I want to do for myself professionally that I'm not going to be able to do at ESPN. And so just being able to have that flexibility to, have my own YouTube channel, to have my own blog, to have, make my own connections and kind of talk about the things that I want to talk about. I think that it's great. And I appreciate, having networked with enough people to have the opportunities to have those conversations with a lot of amazing people. So, it isn't always easy. I always feel like I'm busy. I always feel like I don't have like 5 minutes to just kind of relax and have a beverage and just chill. But at the same time, I don't take for granted that this is something that a lot of people wish they could do. And I'm nowhere near where I want to be, or, I haven't achieved the level of success that I personally see for myself. But I don't take for granted that from where I started, as writing for my homegirls online magazine, to where I am now, where I'm published in the New York Times, I'm published with the Undefeated, I'm published on ESPNW. Like, that is amazing. And I am truly grateful and truly blessed for that opportunity.
Yeah. You may remember, I feel like, I don't know, it's been such a long year, but my daughter and my niece, one day I was watching your show, and
Yep.
and fully transparent, it wasn't a setup. And my niece was, I don't think she was 2 yet, or she might have been just turned 2. So she was not a cooperative child, even if I tried to set that up. She's certainly the boss. And I was just sitting there, and I just turned it on because I was like, all right, okay, new episode, cool, let me check it out. And they just stopped. And I was like, representation. And that's why I was like, I got to show you this. And, that's the reason why, I tweeted it, because I wanted the world to also see the importance of representation. When young Black girls see someone on the screen that looks like them, it
Mm-hmm.
means the world.
I literally just saw that picture come up in my memories like a week ago.
Wow.
It had to be a week ago. It came up in my memories, and it's because I still have it. Like I saved it as a reminder of just that. Like whenever you feel like you're tired, whenever you feel like you don't want to, I don't want to record today. Let's do it tomorrow, whatever. Like that picture is a reminder that there is some young Black girl out there, some little girl out there who needs to see somebody that looks like them on their TV screen for whatever reason that may be. If it's to help them figure out that they can do it, if it's because maybe they hear this message and they don't receive this message from anybody else, but they'll receive it from someone that looks like them, for whatever reason that is, they need to see that representation matters. I only saw like Robin Roberts. And then as I got a little older, I could see Lisa Salters, on the sideline, and, Pam Oliver on the sidelines. But like studio in hosting day in, day out, there weren't too many who I could look at and be like, hey, that woman looks like me. That girl looks like me. There wasn't. So I still have that picture, and I am so happy that you sent me that, and it literally made my heart smile.
Yeah, it's just one of those moments, just being able for them to see, and they won't remember it until I show it to them later, and I can't show it to them. I'm like, hey, look, this is when you was watching my friend when you was this age.
Right, we was two.
But before we get out of here, the name of the show is called Breaking Through the Glass Ceiling, and you've had a plethora of experience. And what was the moment where you knew that you was doing exactly what you're supposed to do and you was good at what you was doing? What was the moment you broke through the glass ceiling?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think there may have been a moment and then like a real moment where it was like, whoa. I think the first moment for me when I realized that like I was really doing some dope stuff is when we were at NBA All-Star in 2018, and I got an opportunity to meet Chadwick Boseman. And to me, it was literally the weekend that Black Panther premiered. I had just saw Black Panther in downtown LA the day before. And so I'm like, yo, I don't know how I managed to get here, but the fact that I'm here right now with this person and two of my homegirls is nuts right now, right? So like that was a moment where I was like, yo, I'm out here. Like I'm really out here. You couldn't tell me nothing, Brian. I was like, did you make the Black Panther today? No, you didn't. Okay. So like out here. But I think that other moment for me was literally just last summer when I received a message from an editor from the New York Times who was like, I want you to help me write a WNBA preview. And I was like, me? You want me to do that? Terrika? Like I was stuck, like super stuck on stupid, because it's not that I didn't think that I could. It's not that even that I didn't think that I was good enough, but it was just one of those moments where if something like that were to happen, I would have thought it would have been me reaching out to say, here's my stuff, won't you take a look? Or here's what I have, won't you, would you read it? Or would you, whatever. Here's a pitch that I have for a story. I never in a million years would have thought that someone would have reached out to me to ask that. And that like really made me feel so worthy and so good and so confident that I'm doing, whether I know it or not, people are watching me and people see me, and what I'm doing is being received in a way that is positive and that is being supported by even those I don't know. So keep going, keep doing it. Keep being your true, authentic, crazy self, because people out there really do like it.
That's wow. Man, what a what a career, and you ain't nowhere near stopping. But I applaud you on everything. Like I said, I just think it's incredible all the work that you've done, all the work that you will do, and just keep on inspiring everybody. Ashley Baker, that's one of my best friends in the world, and she always rants and raves about how great you are.
I love Ashley. Ashley is my girl. It ain't her fault she a Cowboys fan. It ain't her fault.
It's so funny because when we met, so I used to be Cowboys and Ravens, and the reason was when you in Baltimore in like 93, 94, 95, you turn on TV, all you see is Cowboys, Redskins, and 49ers. Well, at the time, I was like, I didn't like the way the Redskins uniforms look. So I was like, all right, I like the 49ers and Cowboys. I didn't know you wasn't supposed to root for both teams.
In the same conference too.
Right. So, and it was that way. And I remember, especially when I was at ESPN, Aaron Hilton used to always tell me, yo, come on, man, you can't have both teams. I said, I go through twice the heartbreak. I go when the Ravens lose and the Cowboys lose. I said, you go back to the 2014 playoffs when Dez caught it. That Saturday night, the first instance of Deflategate that nobody talks about, because if you remember, the Ravens warned y'all, but the first instance of Deflategate, when those trick plays, the Patriots beat the Ravens. Then that Sunday night, the Cowboys lost to the Packers. I said, so, but after a while, and Dak Prescott didn't know how to stop talking sideways about Kaepernick, I said, you know what? They gonna get kicked to the side. I mean, if it's the Cowboys in the Super Bowl, I'm gonna root for them. Shoot, I ain't throw away my Cowboys jerseys. I still got my TO jersey, but it's still I'm not emotionally attached no more.
I'm rooting for everybody Black, right? So I absolutely love what Dak is doing. I can't wait for him to get back healthy, but I really wish he played for a different team.
Let's see, and like, you're a Black quarterback. Why would you say that ain't the time and place for that? But after he got hurt, I felt bad for him. I said, all right, that's enough. I won't keep throwing mud on the water, but whatever.
Right. The only before we go, the only person who ever played quarterback that really made me question if I could truly root for them was Cam Newton, because he played for the daggone New England Patriots. So you know how I feel about the Patriots. I was like, Cam, no.
Well,
how he put them?
Yeah, he took, like he said, he took the hardest job. He had to follow Tom Brady.
Oh, man, I was like, Cam,
That's why I was conflicted too, because I'm a Cam Newton fan. Always, well, when I that year in Auburn, that's when I was like, okay, who's this guy? Black quarterback taking off, cool.
Yep.
And then he goes to Carolina. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be rooting for this guy. I think that was a Super Bowl that hurt, because that was for the culture, and they dropped the ball. It's like, yeah, I love Peyton Manning, but this is for the culture. Yeah,
see, I'm on the opposite spectrum of that. I wanted Cam to get it, but it was Peyton. And for me, Peyton is the greatest quarterback of all time, in my opinion. I know there's no numerical data to support that. And I know all of the "he who shall not be named" fans are going to come for me after they hear this. And that's cool. I could take it, but I don't like them. I love Peyton, so that's just that.
I say he's definitely the smartest, the most intelligent. When it comes to skill, the most prepared to play the game, and
love him.
But I'll let the people know where they can find you.
For sure. Well, I am at SheKnowSports _ on all social platforms. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. I think I got a different name on TikTok, but I don't do nothing on there anyway. But no, you guys can find me on social at SheKnowSports _
See, that's another lesson people can learn. Having the same social media handle everywhere. It's much easier.
Branding. That's it.
Yeah, Terrika, I really appreciate you coming on. This has been fun. I really appreciate it. It's definitely an honor.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you asking me anytime. And as you know, we will absolutely continue to connect once this is over.
Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Breaking Through the Glass Ceilings with Terrika. I always love when I get to share podcasts stories and share podcasts with somebody who is a podcast producer themselves. And guess what? Next week, we're going to do the same thing as we continue to celebrate Women's Month right here on Breaking Through Glass Ceilings, as I bring on Miss Queen PR of those wrestling girls, professionally known as Miss Patricia Rogers. Make sure you tune into that episode. I promise you, you will not want to miss it, as we continue to see great women doing great things, as always, not just in the month of March, but I really wanted to take this time to celebrate the women who are doing incredible things. So make sure you tune in next week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Drop me a 5-star rating. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy these stories as I enjoy listening to them live. And of course, I go back and listen to them because all my friends are great. What can I say? So make sure you tune in. Remember, folks, do not let nobody, I don't care who it is, don't let them set up a ceiling that you can't break through. See you next week. This podcast is brought to you by B Waters Productions. You can follow B Waters Productions on all social media platforms. And the music is produced by Hypno Beats. Follow on Instagram at Hypno_Beats with a Z.